Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This week we talk about Critical Role, Campaign 3, Episode 9, Thicker Grows the Meal and Plot.
Yep.
A reference to the greasy dive bar food served
Yes.
during the episode.
The sip and swill.
Soot and swill.
Soot and swill.
Yeah, Rose, I think this was the closest we've gotten to them firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I'm mystified on how exactly Matt expected them to find her. Well, I don't know. I think there were multiple ways that they could have, and Laura tried to finesse Taliesin into potentially following one of those means. But yeah, I was like, man, what would have happened if they hadn't have done X?
Yeah.
And they were complaining about the gold sink that Matt has designed in this campaign, which is the transit system.
Yep.
But yeah. But the episode begins with Fern belatedly falling back on Charm Person.
Yeah. As I was watching, I was like, okay, half points to Dan. It wasn't her plan, it was her backup plan.
Huh.
I think she thought of it ahead of time, but she thought of it as a backup plan if she couldn't just talk him into doing what she wanted.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
So, in my brain, I gave you half points for that. Because I think it was premeditated, but it was premeditated as a backup plan.
And see, I think Matt knew that she was going to do that. And that's why he had the technically bending of the rules for somatic components of spells that he did. Because rules is written, being restrained doesn't stop you from...
Somatic, yeah.
Yeah. So, technically, she should have been able to cast the spell. But it raises the tension.
Well, I mean, if you're applying it as just the restraint condition, I was looking at it as them holding her hand, like right here at the wrist, same as wearing a shield or holding a weapon without a feat or class feature that lets you use somatic components without those. With those.
Essentially making her hands full.
Yes. Essentially making her hands full so that she couldn't do the somatic components is how I interpreted that.
That's fair. I mean, there are ways you can do it, and Matt has done that before.
Yes, exactly. I think that's why he pointed out that this guy lets go of your hand to draw his weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was just he didn't want that scene deflated so quickly.
Yeah.
And also foreshadowed. I mean, he did it in a little bit in Campaign 2 with Jester. Not letting the person's allies let her get away with charming them. Or the person's like, But yeah. And this time, it was blatant. Where his underlings are like, what, sir?
Yeah, that is the downside of Charm Person when there's multiple people.
Yeah.
It's you're only convincing one of them.
Yeah. And the first of the botched break-ins that Liam jokes about at the end. That they had 3 in this episode. And also one where they left definite witnesses and links back to themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to come back.
Yeah, very true, Rose. Drinking in taverns, breaking into places.
But they go to Lord Estros, and they report in about the missing people at the theater, and ask, have you looked into that stuff that we gave you from Duggar? He's like, it was Broomstone. No, we're talking about the goo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. He mentions a ball that he has avoided for years because he doesn't like to be exposed like that. And I'm like, oh, so that's going to kill him off.
Yep. Yep. He is not long for this world.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I was like,
and then we'll have a second death to avenge.
well, I mean, yes, but I was thinking, I was like, is Matt? Because in theory, Esteros could bequest the manor to them, or one of them.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know if he would do that. And yeah, the cookies, the baking did come back.
Yeah.
This time as well. Yeah, I don't know. It just, to me, when he's talking about the ball, but he doesn't go. This time he's thinking about it, and the ladies are like, "Well, we could go. We could, maybe one of us could be your +1." And there's a debate: could he get a +8?
Yeah. Because you need an entourage.
And just like, I mean, yeah, okay, Esteros might not die, but Matt has set up everything that it seems to be heading that way.
Yeah. Yes. All the small people in her fern soup skirt. I agree.
So Matt probably will let that happen if they did do that.
Or, I mean, if they want, they could put all 3 ladies in hoop skirts and put one small person under each one. So it's not one person with 3 people underneath their skirt.
Yeah, but again, like rules is written, technically, Orm's the only one.
Yeah.
Who has any kind of freedom of movement beneath. But honestly, I think, so if Esteros does get them to go with him to this ball, and there isn't a separate sneaking into the place group, Matt very rarely will split the party for lengthy periods of time.
Right.
So I think it's all or nothing. And I think it will be all. And it will probably be, one of them might be going as Estros's cover, blah, blah. But I think if he's planning on leaving the manor to one of these people, it's probably going to be Orm. And
you think?
Yeah.
What's your reasoning?
Um,
Because my thought was someone else for two very different lines of reasoning.
so the reason I think Aurum is because Estros admires Vox Machina,
Yes.
and Aurum is connected with them in a very intimate way, and he
Okay.
is on business from the voice of the Tempest.
Okay. You can see that.
And of all of these chuckle fucks, Aurum is
The
the
most
most
level-headed.
yes, and the most leaderly.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I can see that.
But Rose nailed my
Imogen.
second one, which was Imogen.
Which neither of mine, Rose, right there. I was thinking Dorian, 1, for his background. And 2, if Robbie's not staying the whole campaign, that's a good way to excuse him, leave him there as they go adventuring. And then he can always guest star when they go back and visit him.
That's a good point for meta reasons.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, and then the background is my other line of thinking.
But Dorian's background, quite specifically, has him rejecting any role of leadership.
Yeah, but those kind of backstories tend to go full circle to where you finally accept your responsibility.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, when they get Dorian's brother killed and he's got to go home with his brother's body and take up the mantle there, he's not going to have time for Esteros' manor. I mean,
yeah, unless his brother, they don't get his brother killed, and his brother
home.
Either brother goes home or maybe even brother takes over for Esteros, so that they have their man in position anyway.
I don't think Esteros would leave it to the brother, though.
I don't think so either. That's why my pick is Dorian.
Yeah.
For both one in game and one better, more solid metagame reason.
See, I don't think Esteros respects Dorian enough. And based on what we know about his inheritance of the title, he's probably going to want it to be someone who has lived in service to somebody else. And that's Aurum.
Yeah. I was going to say, aside from Aurum, I think he respects Dorian as much, if not more, than anyone else in the party.
I don't know. Maybe. But Aurum is really the only one who's asked him for anything concrete that is definitely within his powers to give.
Yeah.
And was also the first one.
I agree, Rose.
To Aurum was the first to give trust to Esteros.
Yeah.
Before he even gave trust to the new party members.
Yeah.
So
I'm not arguing any of your points. They're all valid, and Aurum is up there for me. My list goes Dorian, Aurum, Imogen. Just because, and mainly for the metagame reason.
That's fair. But it helps get the game of intrigue going if your players get something that makes them a player in the politics, rather than just dancing on the outside.
Yeah,
of it.
Very true.
So, the ball is like 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
Which is probably 8 to 10 episodes. Which would put that at the climax of a part 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Shy of them doing any time skips, yeah.
Yeah, like if... Well, actually, maybe Because it depends on how you slice it. Because the addition of Chetney could be seen as the conclusion of part 1.
Yeah.
And then so the ball would be part 2. Or so, I don't know. These things are only visible in hindsight.
Yeah.
But from Lord Esteros, they get the identity of the sister of the bounty hunter they're after.
Mm-hmm.
And they get some foreshadowing of the information that she drops on them about Gurge.
Mm-hmm.
My brain was trying to combine Duggar and Gurge. Anyway, who do you think she's hiding from? That bounty hunter. To skip ahead a little bit.
I'm not sure. Who do you think?
I think she's hiding from the wardens. Or whoever the person in the tower was talking to.
Okay.
But like the way that Matt sort of built her up leading up to the confrontation and how she was framed in that scene, that's not the behavior of the boogeyman in the dark.
Yeah.
That's not how Batman acts, and he was building her up to be Batman.
Okay.
Or Boba Fett, so that's the lingering question I have, is who is she hiding from? And so we have yet to figure that out too, and they need to. And that was a big mistake, not trying to find out why she was hiding in this hidden room.
Yeah.
And why her sister was trying to protect her. Fern calls out the chef.
Yep.
They fall in love with the ogre. And Imogen, as the last-ditch effort to keep him at the table, asks him out on a date.
Yes.
Which I think they're going to stand him up.
I think they have to. I think they're going to be in too much other shit where they're at now to be able to make it back in time.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. Orem takes a bolt for Chetney. And Dorian puts his brother's head on the chopping block in the confrontation with her.
We do get, before, when they're sneaking in, we get some interesting information on Chetney. Turns invisible.
Yes. Which is the gnomish magic feat, I think.
You think he's Verneblin? The deep gnome magic is that feat is only available to deep gnomes. I think he has the shadow touched feat. Which gives you invisibility and then one first level either necromancy or illusion spell.
Yeah. Because he did say he can only do it once a day.
Yep.
So,
and he's not a caster.
so yeah. Well, she will probably put it together that it was a distraction.
Yeah, once he gets stood up, she'll put it together. Although
I think they will probably feel very bad about standing him up, but
health feed level 3, they're level 4. They just went to level 4.
Yeah, he joined it. They were level 4. Snoopy. Do you think they try to get that money they paid her out of Gurge? Which, by the way, was a total of 278 gold. Is what they paid her for that information?
I don't know that they're going to be able to.
What do you mean?
I mean, when you...
Because he's a wild man of the woods and doesn't have money?
And is a prisoner of whoever had the bounty on him. I mean, how rich are captive werewolves?
Fair. And from her, they get basically confirmation he's a lycanthrope.
Yep.
And that he got taken to the Moon Tower, one of the mirror towers.
Moon's back in play.
And the fact that they are called mirror towers and are arranged in a trapezoid, either they are mirroring something cosmologically or physically in the city. I don't know exactly because no one at the table asked any of those questions.
Right.
But if it's not planar or cosmological, it's most likely mirroring the city in some way. And the guilds that operate in those spires, also operate in the tower, in a corresponding tower. That's my theory.
Okay. I think it's definitely cosmological planar. We also learned this episode about that Rudis barely waxes and wanes, if at all. And we've gotten a few hints about moons this game. We got a bunch last campaign, which I think is rolling over. And, you know, some of the things, like, I tied the barely waxes and wanes and is there months at a time with, if you remember, when they went to the fire plane and Plane Rider Ren's journals, there was some kind of cosmological effect that he hadn't pinned down that weakened the barriers between the planes for a couple of months and then receded as slowly as it came.
Yeah.
And I think that's all tied together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, all I'm saying is the History of Exandria video that they put out, the sub 10 minute, over 9 minute video, talks about the Age of Arcanum, the building of the Divine Gate.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason for that.
Yep.
And it's because Tharizdun, the big bad, has not succeeded in his efforts because our heroes continue to thwart him. So, yeah. Interesting take from Matt in the interaction that they had when Dorian is on the back foot. When she basically is like, you know, you kind of look a lot like the description for that bounty. And he's like, we all want to protect our family. Matt didn't call for an intimidation check. Because two key pieces of information surrounded that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
He let her know, I've got 8 friends. Or he said 9. And corrected himself, okay, 8. There were not 8 people in that room. I.e., the others could be in the other room.
Yeah.
With your sister. Do you want to protect your family?
Yeah, okay.
So it was interesting to me that Matt called for the persuasion instead of the intimidation. Where I would have asked for clarification.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. And I think on a subconscious level, if not a conscious one, he was trying to threaten her. Because after they leave, and he's talking about when they're on the ride back on the gondola, he's like, I'm just thinking about all I want to do is go back there and fuck her up.
Yeah.
So, which took me back to his change of alignment.
Yeah.
In EXU. And I'm interested to see how far he's willing to go to protect his brother.
Well, pretty far. If he doesn't protect his brother, he's going to go back and do the thing he doesn't want to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. Another parallel with Campaign 1 is really... We sort of had a blush of it in Episode 8. But in this episode, the well-worn rut of the frenemy relationship between the barbarian and the rogue really started to get that furrow that in the field, that plow, just started to open up for the seeds to be planted. And some of it is just Ashton and how Taliesin has decided to characterize his barbarian attitudes.
See, my brain was expecting... I wasn't thinking barbarian and rogue. I was thinking Taliesin and Travis. And my brain was flashing back to this is going to build up and we're going to have another scene like we did with Grog versus Percy and Percy slap. But it's going to be Ashton versus Chetney in a woodworking.
Yeah, Rose is, yeah. And the insight check afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's funny. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, my brain put the actors together, not the characters from Campaign 1.
That's fair. But like Percy and Grog, there was no real back and forth, really. They had a moment in time where there was a stressor.
There was quite a bit of condescension. I mean...
Well, Percy was condescending to everybody.
Yeah.
Just Grog had always went over his head.
Yeah.
So it wasn't funny.
It wasn't, yeah. It wasn't his give and take because it went over Grog's head, but there was very much that, you know...
That's fair.
And maybe because it went over Grog's head, it seemed a little meaner to me than when he would do it to the others. More antagonistic.
That's fair. But yeah, I just saw it more akin to
and
Grog and
yeah,
Vax.
I can definitely see that
back and forth.
Because Vax and they had the thing too, but Vax put it on the level that Grog would understand and retaliate. Percy had no interest in doing that.
Yeah.
He was like the guy with the hand on the toddler's head, so the toddler can't get him, and the toddler not understanding why.
Yeah. I also take issue with Liam saying to Travis, "You missed out on an opportunity to play a gnome werewolf." And I'm like, he missed no such opportunity. You were barreling toward that possibility at this very moment.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, either Chetney was with Grudge because he was mentoring him as a werewolf and Chetney is a one, or Chetney was being set up to be a target to become one.
Yeah. And I think there's a bigger argument that he was grooming him as a packmate.
Yeah.
But again, if that was the case, that's easy as him biting him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little more willingness to hang around if you've shown that you're friendly. Well, it's sort of like being human.
Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, yes, all he has to do is bite him and make him one. But, and yes, confused about what work, and Chutney even at one point said it was an apprenticeship. How does a master craftsman need an apprenticeship? It's almost like with vampire lore, they have the human servants with the promise of becoming a vampire one day, and they like groom them in the ways, kind of thing, setting them up to be one. Why isn't that a potential for werewolves too?
I guess it could be.
Yes, it would be a newer take on that because that's not often associated with werewolves, but there's no reason why it couldn't be.
Yeah. Well, that's how I run werewolf packs when I run World of Darkness.
Yeah. See, but that's why my brain went there.
Yeah, and I think what's there, Rose, is whoever's smuggling in the broomstone. That is who Grudge was trying to connect him with. And he may have had his own reasons for that.
Yeah.
Because he may be protecting a source of it.
Yeah. And that's 100% possible too.
So the call went out, I need somebody who's good at woodworking and knows the ins and outs of, thievery to infiltrate this organization. And that's how Chetney was put onto this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I loved Liam's, "We're not going to invade a tower tonight." And it's like, you just hear the Seinfeld music play, or, whatever your preferred comedy meme music is.
Yeah.
Cut to.
Yeah. Them doing exactly what they said they weren't going to do.
Go back to Estros, get a letter, let's break in. Let's go. And this time Dorian makes Chetney invisible.
Yep.
And Chetney pulls a Vax. Goes off on his own.
Yep.
Puts his nose where maybe it shouldn't be. Little too early and all alone.
Chisel.
And is alone in the room with the bad guy who's swinging a sword trying to find him.
Yep.
And how does he get away? but dives through a window. A stained glass window of a rose. Oh, yeah. Oh, Rose, I didn't even think about that. The guy who likes to press the button is now the Rose.
Yeah.
He might not live. It's a bad combination, man.
Being that guy can confirm that's a bad combination.
Yeah. But he made it out of this one. I think the flower is important. And would be the third instance of flowers being important to the story, insofar as we have two party members who have a very strong association with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Fern, who adorns herself with them,
yep,
and poisonous ones, which is important, and Imogen, the field of flowers, wildflowers.
Yep.
Flowers in Victorian England, and offhand I can't remember the specific name for this, but there was essentially a code.
Yeah, a whole language based on flowers and what you would send. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of it was funerary or threatening.
Yep.
So I'm sort of waiting to have Laudna's floral connection revealed. I have a feeling it's coming.
Well, I mean, there's usually flowers put on a grave. We know she's died.
Yeah. I mean, that's the obvious one. But
maybe Whitestone Andy left them for her.
It was a good moment.
Marisha is so great being put on the spot for a name of an NPC she once knew.
Well, I love that Liam just flat out admitted, much like a fan, much like us, like speculating that every connection that she has in Whitestone is in some way Percival.
Yeah, fishing for Percy.
Yeah, it's like I was just fishing for Percy. But yeah, that was also funny. See, I don't know. Do you think... Because this gets back to why I say, like, Estros is not long for this world, and that he's probably going to leave the estate to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, you are all very motivated. He mentioned that they're motivated and that they work quickly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that has frustrated him is that he has not been able to work quickly enough.
Yeah, it almost gives me the vibes like he knows his number's up and he is working with them to try and suss out an heir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
exactly a dark Willy Wonka.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's the baking. And all the traps in his house.
Holy shit, I love this.
Lord Estros is Willy Wonka.
And now I'm just picturing him as Gene Wilde. I love this. This is perfect. Oh my god. Do you think there's Oompa Loompas?
I mean, shape creepers. Or maybe that's what the Umaya are supposed to be.
Yeah. There you go. Yes. No.
Yeah.
That's now headcanon. As soon as you said Dark Willy Wonka, yeah, no, that's it. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that.
The only thing he hasn't done is he's given them tea.
Yeah. I mean,
candies.
Essentially the first meeting where he's in the chair and seems old and then springs up and attacks him could be the limping out into the somersault.
Yep.
Yeah. Which was actually added to that movie by Gene Wilder.
Yeah, because he wanted people not to trust him.
Yeah, he insisted on doing it so they would never know whether he was lying or telling the truth when he spoke.
Yep. So good.
Yes. All right.
So, the ball, is that our golden ticket quest kind of thing?
No, I think the ball is the end where he reveals who the person is that gets to take over the factory.
That's fair. Yeah.
Does that make Chetney Grandpa Joe?
Well, I think of between Chetney and Bertrand. Bertrand's the one with the cocktail.
Well, and is the one that worked with him in the past. For him in the past.
And Chetney was accusing Orem of being a child and being impatient.
It fits. It's perfect. If this isn't what it is, someone at Critical Role needs to talk to Matt and make that what it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Any speculations coming up, or? I mean, we've established they're gonna end up having to stand up pretty.
Well, they might not have to, because in theory they could get across there fast enough.
Well, we'll either get the date or get them connecting with Pretty to make it up to him.
Yeah. He found the map.
The map, which Devin Root put up on Twitter, and it's just of the Wilde, that section of Marquette.
Yeah.
All the wilderness and the cities and stuff.
Well, and I think, Rose, that's... If the story progresses any further, that's going to be the line that it follows.
Yeah.
Is finding out who that guy was talking to.
Yeah.
I don't know if we found out anything in particular. We still don't know where Gurge is.
No.
And presumably he's somewhere in that tower. And they want him for whatever that map was on his desk for, which is probably the broomstone that he's protecting, which is why he wants Chetney to infiltrate the people who are building.
Yeah.
So if I'm right, and that's how that all plays together.
Yeah.
That seems to me how that buttons up. I think the next thread to pull is I want to say trust in Waltz, but that's just because campaign 2 is in my head. The family with the 3 guilds under them.
I don't remember.
Pulling at their threads.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we finally will get the meeting with the anger.
Next week?
I think so.
Okay.
He asked for it as soon as possible. And if they have any combat at all, it will be quick because they only have half a dozen Wilders, the guards, on the campus there. And they might not have to do anything because Chetney isn't visible yet. And the hour isn't over yet.
Yeah.
So it could just become a cat and mouse skill challenge to get away and get the girls to their date.
Yep.
And the guys probably stay at the bar and drink while they're doing their date and talk about what to happen next. Ashton could, in that situation, enlist Dorian, I think. He'll try to enlist Dorian, maybe. To go see JH. Jimmy Hoffa, as they joked.
Yeah.
I think that's some way going to be a key. Like, that's why I say I'm interested to know behind the screen what Matt's plan was to tease all this out if they didn't get the name.
See, I think
the bounty hunter.
Yeah. I think the one thing they're missing, they keep hitting all these things. They've now got the letter. I think they're going to go back to the school and stumble upon more information in that research. I think something in their research at that school, now that they have the letter to get in, is going to tie things together.
See, I don't think so. I think the school is more Act 2. I think we're still in the first act.
Okay.
I think whatever research they do at the school is going to reveal Imogen's connection to the Raven Queen, and also potentially Laudna's patron's connection to the Whispered One. And I think that's why I put that in Acts 2 because that begins the higher level kind of stuff.
Gotcha. See, I was thinking that if it was going to be for Act 2, then they wouldn't have gotten the letter so quickly.
Well, they didn't, because he kept forgetting. And it's damn convenient if he keeps forgetting and then dies.
Yeah.
And leaves it to one of them. And maybe that's how Imogen, if Imogen gets it, maybe that's how she gets in.
Yeah.
But that would definitely be probably the first thing that Orem does for her.
Yeah.
Chetney was asking some of the right questions of Esteros when he's talking about how, do you have people you trust? Do you have allies? And Esteros is like, oh yeah, I got a few. Because they need to figure out who those people are.
Yeah.
And my guess is, as they uncover these threats to the city, they will go to Esteros, and Esteros will send them to one or two. And it's possible he has, the reason why he has the in with the Ludness family is because they're one of them, or were.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Introductions at the ball.
If he can't get around to doing it before then. Ideally, these things happen before then. And largely because, so there's a reason why Esteros would want to do it before the ball. First, it helps him get these people in as his entourage, because his allies know them. So it helps the cover, as it were. Two, he's not blindsiding them with this squad of mercenaries. So there's just a lot of reason. And if he is indeed grooming a successor, the successor needs to meet these people before the moment of peril.
Yeah.
And if he is indeed paranoid about him being killed and is, maybe he's certain the attempt will be made at the ball, he has to have, those introductions have to be made before he goes, before that moment of peril. On the other hand, it's possible that when he took over, he didn't get anything like that. That the expectation was the people he has made friends with in the service to this woman over the years are his people, and she didn't give him any of hers.
Yeah.
And the idea is you have to make it yourself.
I don't remember the exact reason, but Matt said on Twitter at one point that Travis wanted the character, I forget the reason, but didn't feel the character was right for right at the beginning and wanted him introduced later. And that's why he played Bertrand Bell first.
I think it was... I think it was literally... He wanted to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And play a character that he had played before in a connection to Campaign 1. And... which is why I am firmly convinced that much of the stuff from Campaign 1, vis-a-vis the Whispered One failing, and then what we saw in Campaign 2 with what he's trying to do with Cognoza failing, Campaign 3, similar kind of parallel things, where history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just, he wanted to do something different. Bertrand was a great way to introduce Estros. And there's always a much higher level of buy-in when you can get a player to introduce an NPC.
Yeah.
Because there's a trust hump.
Yeah.
That some players have to overcome with NPCs.
It's not a full transfer, but it's a partial transfer of the PC Halo.
Yeah.
To the NPC.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Matt Mercer saw what Matt Colville did on the Chain of Acheron. And basically, the first 6 episodes, I think, were all Matt conspiring with other players at the table to do certain things. And one of them was the guy who was playing the commander of the chain. That wasn't his that wasn't his character. That guy was always there to die. And he talked with Matt about that and had actually made his lieutenant to come in. And Matt basically told all of them that if you die, you can bring your lieutenant in.
Yeah.
So they all had input in what their lieutenants were.
Yeah.
It just, with him, it was explicitly, this guy's going to die in session 1. And he did. And that put everyone on the back foot and had the desired result that Matt wanted. They ran. And then the next bit of player conspiring was when Matt ripped off the episode of Star Trek. The one where they go through the barrier at the edge of the galaxy, and the dude gets superpowers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tom, whose character's name is Nails, to replicate the silvery eyes that he has, he wore like mirror shades, and Matt gave him a voice-changing microphone to speak into when he's Omega Nails, as they call them. So yeah, I think he saw that, and Travis being oh so willing to troll and trick his fellow players.
Yeah.
Who didn't want to bring in a character right away, wanted to have a delay, but didn't want to be absent from the table.
Even though he was.
Yeah. So yeah, and Travis also, so Travis said, well, Chetney said, just see me in a fight, hoo-hoo. And I'm like, yes, if only they could have seen you in a fight. Like,
against a wall.
A wall.
Where they desperately needed you.
Yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah, I think we'll get a little more there. So, the Nightmare King could either be Vecna, or a servant of his, or Tharizdun. Because Tharizdun, in the lore, comes to people in their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, there's one other option that you're not going to like. So, you made a reference earlier about someone having said that this campaign feels a lot more like Dimension 20 than previous campaigns. Well, in Dimension 20, there's don't know that he's exactly a big bad, but there's a semi-powerful NPC that Brennan has created called the Nightmare King. So there's people wondering if Brennan's going to guest star. And it's a crossover reference.
Mm. Yeah.
So
not an impossibility.
Not an impossibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but
yeah,
the post I saw about it had some things, similar things going. You know, like there's similar foreshadowing.
Interesting.
So their thought is either Brennan is going to influence that, or it's an homage to what Brennan's doing over on Dimension 20.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll have to wait and see for Thursday, and we'll be back here next Tuesday to talk about it. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.